Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, today I wanted to talk to you about metagaming. And Nolinquisitor had this great little post on his own Facebook page, and so I want to read it verbatim because it's so good. And he said, "RPG thought of the day: metagaming. Metagaming is just gaming, playing the game. In Monopoly, you can see the money pile of the others playing. You're not metagaming if you count it. It's there. You just play. You role play Monopoly if you ignore that information and make the little dog bark." I thought that was great. So I wanted to talk a little bit about metagaming. What is it? When is it acceptable? When is it not acceptable? All that kind of junk, at least in my mind. And then, hopefully get some of your opinions. So first of all, metagaming is a term that I really hadn't thought about decades ago when I first started gaming. Although we kind of knew what it was, later on. But when I returned to gaming, some time ago now, I encountered this term. And so what it really means is, basing your decisions or actions of your character as you're playing this character in whatever game world you're in, basing their decisions and actions on information that they manifestly would not know, but you as a player know. And so this could, be things like, you understand the abilities and powers and weaknesses of various creatures that you encounter, and say your character never encountered a troll or whatever it is, but you have read the game. You maybe have years of experience in whatever game it was. You know what to do in that situation. Maybe you understand how the magic system works, but your character isn't a spellcaster in whatever game you're in. Maybe there's a lot of things. Maybe in terms of like how certain mechanics work, and that's where it gets a little fuzzy, etc. Or maybe you just have in the most egregious cases, you have information regarding a particular area that you're in. Either you're playing a module, which is not my favorite style of play, but let's go with this. So you've already read it. You know what happens, where all the stuff is. You can see through walls. You're omniscient at that point. Or you're basing it on things that other characters know. Your character wasn't in the room when something happened, but you just kind of you know it because you were there. As the player. Or you're basing it on things that your old character knew, which you're no longer playing. Or whatever. You played several different characters in this game world, and so now you're playing the current character with knowledge that they just manifestly would not know. That's where it becomes like more egregious. So to me, when is metagaming okay or not okay? I get Null Inquisitor's analogy there. Making a little dog bark, I don't think is role playing. That's a whole different topic. Well, let me just let me cover that first, because I talked. Man, it's a couple of months ago now. I talked about my girlfriend and I buying Monopoly, and we played it, and we role played, more or less. But we role played, we just made up these characters. We didn't say we're going to make up characters, but we took on these personas as we cut each other's throats, and she trounced me. But that was a lot of fun. Little dog never barked, and so we role played Monopoly, I guess, as good as you can in that circumstance. However, is it metagaming to look at how much money or how much property that the person has? I guess you could make it a case that maybe it is, but maybe in the game of Monopoly you could say behind the scenes, the players have information about each other's empires, whatever it is. So I don't necessarily think that's metagaming. That's certainly not an egregious case of metagaming. In terms of basing your actions on like knowledge of the rule set and skill system or whatever, how the die rolls work and all that's good junk, how the mechanics and system works. My take on it, that is this: if it's something that your character like engages in, like say they have the skill of fencing, or the skill of climbing, or the skill of juggling, or whatever it is, diplomacy. There's a good chance that in real life, let's like make them a real person, because I think that's part of the goal of role play. At least immersive role play, like I tend to like. Never knew I liked immersive role play, but I think that's what I like. Anyhow, the idea is that you have an estimation of how good you are at something. As a person, you have an estimation of how difficult things are. You can size them up. You have ballpark idea. I've talked about this probably in my first videos, but you have ballpark ideas of what your chances are in any given situation. So to me, it's not necessarily metagaming if I'm using the how a dice pool works, or how modifiers work and all that sort of stuff, because if it's something that my character has experience in, they know this. They're just I'm thinking in different game terms, but I'm making decisions based on how I know the world works, and how that world works behind the scenes is through the rolls of dice and modifiers and dice pools and whatever else is going on in that particular system. So I don't necessarily call that metagaming, and if it is, it's not egregious. It's not really all that bad. Uh, it gets worse for me where I start to really just kind of draw the line is when you're basing your actions on, uh, you know, knowledge of, like, say, like I said before, like, you know, how a troll works. Trolls, you know, in D&D at least, fire and acid kills them. They regenerate, all that good stuff. If you've never heard of one, okay, you're metagaming a little bit when you're doing that. Can't help it to a certain extent. Um, and that's certainly not the worst case of metagaming, which is one of the reasons I like to, I like unique and singular monsters, or creatures, things where or at least you change them as a game master so the players don't know. I'd rather not know. I'd like to know because I like to win, but for the fun aspect, I'd rather not know. And but then it gets worse and worse as you start to make decisions based on what your character absolutely doesn't know. In terms of, like, they don't know what this other area of the world is like that the last character was there. Was in. There's an interesting game. I'm trying to remember which one. I haven't played it, but I remember listening to Robert the narrator talk about it. And oh man, it's escaping me right now. It's one of the sci-fi, like, transhuman type games. And maybe Eclipse something, whatever it is. Anyhow, Eclipse Dawn, Eclipse something, Eclipse Phase. There you go. And you were watching me struggle, and you knew the name, didn't you? And the idea that your character can be killed, and their personality is uploaded in the computer, so you can just get downloaded into a new body, and there's some kind of little chip in the base of your spine, and if that survives the death incident, you remember everything up to the point of death, so you remember who killed you. However, if that doesn't survive the event, your character can be resurrected, as it were, but they don't have memory of their last, since their last download to the point of death, and now you have to play the game, not basing your actions and decisions on what you as the player know, but as the character don't know. I mean, that's got to be challenging, but fun. So, metagaming is tough not to do. I prefer not to do it. I prefer, people I play with not to do it. And there's different levels of, trying to use a word other than egregious, but, different levels of how egregious it is. Sometimes it's passable. Sometimes there's things that your character, you can make a case for why your character thinks in that particular manner, like the abilities. And, other times it's, come on, dude, you really don't know this. You can't base your actions on that. And, I talked about, and I'll wrap up here, but I talked about a campaign I was involved in where my first character died. I had to leave to go to a gig, and something happened afterwards. And made up a new character, played several sessions for months, with this new character. All the other players knew something. I didn't know it. They never told me. And so when it finally, we finally encountered these people again, I was like blown away. That was really cool. So I didn't have to metagame in that situation because the players didn't let me. So anyhow, what's your take on metagaming? When is it okay? When is it not okay? What is it? And where do you draw the line? Have a good one.